Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, we're doing a Zoomtopia 2021 review. I'm Kevin Busza with Profound Technologies, Zoom Gold Certified Integrator, and I'm joined today with John Stearns, who leads Zoom Room sales for the enterprise team in the United States. Hey, John, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Kevin.
Yeah, so I thought maybe a good place to start would be to just talk about Zoomtopia stats. I think maybe some people that are joining with us today, some will be our IT partners, others end users and friends of the company. But not everybody knows a lot about what exactly Zoomtopia is. So maybe just give us an idea of what it is and does, at a glance, John.
Yeah, sure, Kevin. So Zoomtopia is our user conference that we conduct annually. For obvious reasons, this year this was done 100% virtually for the second year in a row, and the attendance was just remarkable to see. I mean, as you can see here, over 48,000 registrants. The breakout sessions and the content that went into this, I got a peek at behind the scenes and how they handle subject matter experts, doing all the breakout sessions. And of course, we had all sorts of all-star guests and keynotes and whatnot. So it was really, really remarkable to see, even just in 1 year, how much this conference has grown. And it's grown as Zoom has evolved from really a meetings app to a full UCaaS platform. The announcements, really got larger and larger. So even just trying to fit all of the really cool stuff that we're doing into the keynote was a challenge, because it's not just about a couple of new features on a meetings app or a couple of new features on the room side. We're covering all sorts of solutions here with things like Zoom Events and Zoom Phone and Zoom Apps and a lot of the stuff that we'll kind of summarize today.
Yeah, I thought it was remarkable. 48,000 registrants. I thought to myself, given my background and your background in IT and collaboration, that's larger than some of the largest, collaboration trade show itself.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of, remarkable. But yeah, as far as we're going to get into a few things. Going to take people through some of the new announcements. I thought maybe with we're highlighting some, we're sharing now, maybe our top two that we think might be more remarkable. They're all very remarkable. I'll start, one that I like that we're going to talk about is the appliance movement. The new appliances that are for large room types. I think that that's pretty significant. And I would say smart gallery, just because what we're seeing with the user community. So I wondered, John, what were maybe a couple from you?
Yeah, I mean, being focused on the room side here as well, I think you hit the nail on the head for the two that I find most significant. I'll go as far as to say probably Smart Gallery and the new Zoom whiteboard that we're going to dive into, because both of these really address the major challenges that our enterprise and all of our segment customers are looking to do right now, which is really democratize the meeting and collaboration experience, right? People are going to be in the office, people are going to be working from home. So we need to make sure that it's a more inclusive meeting experience, regardless of where people are working from and how they join in and what devices. And I think Smart Gallery brings that together. And I think also the new Zoom whiteboard does as well, where people can contribute. And we'll talk about that in a little bit here.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, smart gallery, maybe we start with that one. This idea of democratizing the meeting experience. I think probably what strikes me most about it is you have, the COVID period where people were very much forced to work from their home, and there's an experience that they're familiar with. My picture is representing me within the meeting context, and I like that. I like to be able to have that versus you go into a traditional conference room and then there's just one, wide angle lens. So Smart Gallery looks to solve that. John, any thoughts on just that in general and how it's being rolled out? I know that it's rolled out on different platforms now.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was exactly what we were setting out to do. A lot of customers were telling us they got so accustomed to our gallery view, the Brady Bunch style of seeing everyone during the pandemic, that they needed to keep that as they, transition some people back to the office. So it was really born out of that need, but it has really evolved into a whole lot more, where a lot of our customers are, designing their rooms and spaces around this concept. And so what we're doing here is we're framing out individual faces of participants in the conference room and then representing them back in that Zoom gallery view, in a more up close and personal manner. So from a single Zoom room, single camera, and oftentimes we're sending up to 3 separate video streams from that room, and then sending that back to the Zoom gallery view. So the end result is, representing more people, equally, and up close and personal. We're rolling that out over phases. So we actually just started back in July with the first phase. This was something we actually announced last Zoomtopia, as we started development on working on this concept. And so the first phase of that came to our appliances, and specifically available on Poly and Neat appliances today. It's also going to be coming to Logitech by the end of the year on their Zoom Room appliances. What we did in the October release, the next major Zoom Room release in 5.8, was we took that concept of sending multiple streams from a single Zoom Room, and we expanded that over to multi-camera Zoom rooms. So for some of those unique, customized rooms where you need to get different camera angles, now on the Mac and Windows platform, if you have up to 3 cameras, you can send those 3 camera streams simultaneously. And so really what we're doing there is, the evolution of auto framing and camera tracking in the industry has been, pretty innovative, right? We've both been in the industry for a long time, and starting with manual PTZ cameras and presets. And then there was, speaker tracking and auto framing that really started to, get big about 5 years ago. All that was really doing with speaker tracking specifically was showcasing who was speaking, right? It was bopping around as people talked, and you'd lose all the reactions and all the other nonverbal cues. So it was a necessary evolution in camera technology, but then this is really bringing it all together. And it's, not sure that this would have been as much of a need without the pandemic and without the way that the whole world and the way that online meetings are held now.
Yeah, I agree. And I was just dealing with one of our customers lately that had an older style camera tracking solution. And for those maybe not as familiar, 2 cameras that use a mic to triangulate, and it just zooms in on the one person talking in the room. And in this particular customer's case, they want to get rid of it and do something more in line with smart gallery. So that's huge, and probably is a good transition point to talk about appliances, because appliances are a platform that is rapidly growing. And there's a big news about large room appliances, but they also, in many cases, are the first or one of the first to have the smart gallery. So let's talk about this new Zoom Room appliance. And maybe before, I ask you, John, what the significance of having it is, let me just explain to the audience. The appliance concept is the idea of moving the Zoom experience directly onto the chipset and the operating system of the actual unit. So on this slide, we're showing Poly's product, Neat's product, Logitech. In each of these cases, we're moving away from a Windows Mac-based type experience to a compute device that's integrated into the room solution. And what that does is it allows for a lower cost solution. It allows for closer feature parity with what Zoom's rolling out, and generally it's more stable. So, John, what do we see is new here with the new Zoom Room appliances for large rooms?
Yeah, so the size of the room, right? This was a gap that we had, from the introduction of appliances, which was about 2 years ago now. We really started on the huddle spaces and small, working our way up to medium-sized rooms. But we didn't have any of these 3 appliances available as recent as just a few months ago. And so that, there was a cutoff of where appliances could serve certain spaces with simplicity and scale and cost effectiveness, as you mentioned. And then anything bigger than that was requiring, more of a pro AV design that was built around the Mac or Windows platform. So with the introduction of all 3 of these, we've expanded the amount of rooms that we can service with these appliances to really start getting into some of these bigger spaces. As you can see, kind of 9 to 18 plus. That obviously will depend on room layout and some other environmentals and things like that. Mm-hmm. But we showcase the Logi Rally Bar and Rally Bar Plus very frequently in a 30-foot room that we have at Zoom headquarters during our virtual tours. And the speaker is typically 27 feet away from the camera and the mic array, by the way, and it really gets up close and personal. So it's pretty remarkable to see what our hardware partners have done to kind of bring these appliances to bigger spaces. And it's not just the camera technology. I mentioned the mic arrays are getting stronger and stronger. The speakers that are all embedded into these devices, are capable of servicing larger and larger rooms. So It's really just building all the tools that you need into these appliances. And then, in the case of the Rally Bar Plus, and then also with, Poly and Neat, you have the ability to add external microphones and whatnot, to make sure that you're picking up the coverage of that. And some of them have the ability to integrate more with Pro AV and things like that if you need to get more robust on the audio side. But it's packed a lot into these. And again, just being in this industry for a long time, it's pretty crazy to see the innovation as well as the cost of these devices. We've come a long way, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I see it as, these rooms might have formerly not too long ago cost, 3 to 5x more. And now this allows for enterprises, educational institutions, organizations of various kinds to roll out collaboration everywhere and have the flexibility, like you mentioned, excuse me, to customize the microphone system if they'd like, or just use the mic pods that are native to some of these platforms. But it's a lot of value. And also with these appliances, not just the large appliances, but it ties into Zoom's admin portal with the ability to recognize telemetry. So what does that mean? It's just the idea that these pieces of equipment, these appliances and the piece parts within it can report back to your Zoom admin portal, and that can be sent to a professional services organization like Profound, or can be handled by your tier 1 IT. So very exciting news. And keeping with some new announcements, let's talk new personal Zoom rooms, which I'm not always sure if I should refer to these as phones or as Zoom rooms, but take us through it, John. How are you thinking about these new products?
And I feel the same way because there's a lot packed into these. As you can see, there's a lot of use cases listed there. These are great for home offices, personal offices, even the technology being showcased inside of these devices. These are going into open spaces, right? Our customers are placing these in there, and they are essentially your personalized Zoom experience. So all of your meetings show up because your calendar would be integrated to the personal device. If you have Zoom Phone, your Zoom Phone lines, your contacts, your voicemails are all built into the device. So it really is consolidating, the need for multiple devices in a lot of instances. And the Zoom client experience, as we all know, is fantastic. And people have gotten really creative with their multi-monitor setups and whatnot. And camera technology's gotten a lot better. Even the microphones built into things like the Logitech Brio are great, but some customers are still looking for that kind of purpose-built appliance that can be used either dedicated to a user or placed into something like a phone booth where people are going to duck in for some of their more sensitive or private meetings rather than taking those out in the open in their areas of work. So a lot of cool things you can do with this. I mean, we made, we'll talk a little bit about virtual kiosk in a second here, which is capable of running on these smaller devices. And then as we introduce hot desking, that's going to be big as well, because users will be able to essentially check into these devices intelligently and sit down and get their work done. So even if that's not their dedicated workstation, it will, in a matter of seconds, customize that experience for that user while they're there. And the cost of these personal devices, I mean, I came from a world, based around, SIP-based codecs, and spent, 16 years in and around the Cisco and Tandberg world. And these personal devices, were sometimes, upwards of $10,000, and so it was very much an executive focused model, just like the rest of Zoom rooms. I mean, the cost has come down significantly on these, where it really is more cost effective to deploy as an all-in-one device that is a user's phone, their personal video device, et cetera.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like it's just a way to kind of bring the whole collaboration experience right in front of you. But then also, so think about it that way, it's your personal Zoom room. It can have your chat, your calendar, your calling and meeting history, but then you could also use it in like a hot desking capacity, which we'll talk about shortly. And what that's allowing people to do is take the value of their Zoom investment and really have a lot of flexibility as to where they put it, and flexibility on who can activate a Zoom meeting on these devices. It can be anyone, really.
Yeah, I really like what we did with licensing of personal Zoom rooms. So not to get into licensing models and whatnot on this, but even for dedicating a device like this to an individual user that already has a Zoom host license, they don't also have to go and buy a Zoom room license for this if it's going to be set up as a personal Zoom room for someone. So it doesn't consume any additional licensing. So that makes it more scalable, not just on the hardware side, but the licensing cost model.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's continue with the conversation here and talk a little bit about rooms interoperability. Now, you and I kind of go back with knowing how difficult it was to interop, pre-Zoom and just with different video standards. And then a lot has happened just in the last couple of years. I remember 2019 going into 2020, there was announcements about Teams and WebEx integration, and here we are now, and we have a tremendous amount of flexibility and capability with what Zoom can do from an interoperability perspective. John, you have some interesting thoughts about kind of the different layers of interoperability. Before we talk about just direct meeting join, maybe talk to us about what Zoom can do with interop.
Yeah. I think when people hear Zoom rooms, for obvious reasons, they think, oh, that's a room-based solution that can join Zoom meetings, right? But there's a whole lot more packed into that. So, right out of the gate, a Zoom room can dial SIP, can dial H323. There's a one button to push join experience into WebEx and BlueJeans, starting to support Teams with that model as well, without the need for any licensing or third party. So Zoom, the way we approach this, and this is important as I lead the enterprise market here for Zoom rooms. All of our enterprise customers have multiple platforms internally. They have existing investments in SIP-based video conferencing devices, whether they're Polycom or Cisco or Lifesize. They need this all to work together. And so the way that we approach this is respecting that and understanding that customers need this flexibility internally as well as, of course, externally when they do business and need to meet outside. They can't always control where that meeting platform is hosting a meeting. So really those are the layers. Is the first one is integrating SIP and H323 devices into our Zoom environment, allowing for the optimization of those devices to join into Zoom with a one-touch join experience. So we can respect the investments that customers have made, and they can let those depreciate accordingly. But then obviously, as they think about placing new Zoom rooms into spaces that they're building out or replacing older devices, that they have that peace of mind that you can join into all of the major meeting platforms right out of the gate without any additional curveball interoperability services that are needed. So there's those. And then, as we talked about recently, there's kind of the hardware flexibility with interoperability, right? And BYOD and, the USB pass-through concept. I think that's also an important part. And I know that you guys have profound, design rooms with this in mind a lot of times to help customers address their needs. That's an important angle as well.
Yeah, I think it's important that the user community, the IT community realizes how flexible Zoom is with its approach. You mentioned a couple of things there, but just to kind of dig into a little bit more for those joining us, BYOD, this concept of you can run a Zoom room, but then if you wanted to plug in your laptop and run a different collab platform, Zoom supports that. And then interoperability from a meeting perspective, there's a lot of folks that run off of a Teams collab environment, but they just prefer Zoom. We get that a lot here. And that is a very straightforward solution as far as being able to recognize that Teams meeting invite, and then just to launch it within your Zoom meeting environment, just one button to push, and you're seeing the join to the Teams meeting. And then another layer, which doesn't really fit under interop, but what I like about how Zoom Rooms functions is that it also cooperates with existing SIP phone systems. So through the admin portal, if you have an investment in your phone system, you have a dialing plan that you like, or you just like how that bridge works, very simple to just put that credential into the admin portal. And then when you see the dial option on your Zoom room, you're using your own infrastructure. That's just a choice. You could do Zoom phones, and that would be good too. But yeah, there's just a lot of value here with interoperability. Bouncing around a little bit, if it's all right, John, I'm going to move on to the kiosk, I believe. So we see a lot of different use cases. I was actually just talking to a Zoom SE yesterday and talking about the need in the medical environment for kiosks and integration. And there's so many other use cases. I mean, in hospitality, we can imagine, checking into a hotel, navigating that building. in corporate environments where you might have a large corporate park with amenities and users have shared services. So there's a lot that can be done here, not to mention, IT support at the kiosk level. Talk to us a little bit about Zoom virtual kiosk, maybe different use cases or what's new that people are talking about here.
Yeah, sure. So, like a lot of things at Zoom, this was really an idea that started based on customer feedback and demand and requests. During the pandemic, customers were coming to us saying, we need a way to keep our receptionists safe as we transition people back to the office, and we need them to be able to scale and cover multiple buildings because we're not back to 100% in the office, or even they might need to greet and welcome people face to face from their own home as people are stepping foot in the lobbies of their buildings. That's really where this was born. And what a virtual kiosk does, or what it is, it runs essentially a flavor of a Zoom Room software, right? And it is fully customizable, fully brandable. So right in the Zoom admin portal, you can update the logo, the background image, you can have the header, the subheader, say whatever you want. The button itself is actually customizable. And so it puts this super simple front-end interface that allows you to instruct people that walk into an area, to get connected with subject matter experts. On the back end, what you would do is you would determine for each kiosk, who do we want this to route to, right? We want it to route to multiple people to make sure that when someone taps that button, that someone's there to greet them face to face. So that's really where this was born from, as a virtual reception use case. That I put, when we were working on this, I put IT support kiosks because that's probably the second most common use case that we're seeing right now as customers, want to use these internally for just their own employees as a way to get connected with experts in IT, or even, to sit down and get connected with, folks in HR for benefit, conversations, and really anything at that point that you would want to, put a super simple front end interface on. And then, listening to customers, what else do we need with this? And that helped drive our roadmap for especially what's coming in the December release, which is the ability to put multiple buttons on there that can be configured en route to different, pools of subject matter experts. That can be different languages. In the image there, you see visitors and employees and deliveries, obviously routing to different people that would be able to handle that situation. But that's going to open up a whole lot more opportunity there. The other thing is that this is a touchscreen device, which is great. You walk up and you touch it. A lot of customers said they're reluctant to have people touching surfaces right now. So we're going to take the same voice command support that we already support in Zoom Rooms across the portfolio. We're going to bring that concept over to the kiosk as well. And I've seen some pretty cool demos from D10 specifically around gesture support. So just a wave would kickstart this whole interaction. And then, get a little bit more into incorporating QR codes that might, direct a guest to, go through our customers, normal check-in survey, or their COVID survey, or whatever else that needs to happen during these, check-in experiences. The QR code and some integrations we're working on will allow for that. So, imagine checking someone in remotely and then printing their badge out right there for them, potentially integrate with physical security and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it's tremendous, both from the ability to manage workflows and customize the code, which is something we also do here at Profound, working with the Zoom APIs. But video workflows is just a tremendous idea. And the fact that you can handle that through your admin portal and be able to create those workflows, it's a new concept, and just to have it all integrated into the Zoom platform is tremendous. So moving on to yet another topic, room scheduling and hot desking. I think for most of those joined with us, we understand that Zoom has a pretty seamless integration with scheduling, whether it's representing the Zoom schedule, on an iPad or on a Logi panel, just natively syncing with your Zoom device, or working with other scheduling platforms again, and bringing that information, into the scheduler outside the room, obviously on the displays within inside of the room. But there's some new advancements about room scheduling related to, hot desking and navigating buildings. John, can you take us through that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely, Kevin. So as you know, we've had the room scheduling display solution for many years now. This is not something that's new to us. What I will say is the way customers are looking at this has changed, coming out of the pandemic and looking to modernize the office experience and support hybrid work. This has gone from, even 5 years ago being looked at as really a luxury in a lot of offices to a necessity, right? So users can very easily walk in and identify space to get together. They can walk up and reserve right from that panel. They can even look at a floor plan to reserve a totally separate room if that room happens to be booked. What I'd say is new is, with some of these appliances on the inside, we've worked with our hardware partners, to really, address some additional needs for customers. So for example, Neat does a really good job of building all sorts of environmental sensors into their devices. So we can take things like the temperature, for example, and populate that on the room scheduling display. A lot of our partners support people count and the live occupancy. That's also important to put on the scheduling display. Not all rooms are clear glass. So before I even open that door, I might see that room is at capacity, right? We can enforce social distancing. There's some pretty cool things we can do there with automatically releasing the room if there's no activity detected when it was booked for a meeting, right? If there's a no-show, that's important to optimize as well. So a lot of cool stuff happening there. And really what we did was we evolved that concept to a more broader hot desk experience where now we'll allow employees and users to find space, and that could be an individual desk or a conference room, and book it right there on the spot. That could be live, or it could be someone planning to go into the office the next day, right? They want to reserve a desk, and so we'll support that across the laptop, desktop, mobile device. We'll support that on that virtual kiosk we just talked about. So imagine putting one of those on each floor, and that's where users, employees walk in for the day. They walk right up there, they find a desk, they tap on it, and they reserve it. And then the walk up to the desk itself, if there's a Zoom room, personal Zoom room or a Zoom phone appliance, they could walk up and reserve it right there on the spot. And then the whole process is really managed through QR code. It authenticates the user as they sit down, and then that device is customized for that person while they're working there for that period of time. So pretty cool stuff.
It is. What I like mostly about it is it's meeting enablement. In the past, and even to today, the concept is you make an investment in your collaboration platform, and then there's training and there's enablement. What I like about what Zoom's doing, with the mapping, with the flexibility of the QR code, there's a variety of different ways where users can come into the environment and intuitively recognize, oh, okay, this is my collaboration options viewed spatially, a map. Red means no, green means go, pick and choose and book my meeting. And then QR codes. I mean, if it's a Zoom environment and you can just go up and scan the QR code, what an easy way for you to enable more meetings in your environment.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say, a couple of years ago, QR codes were not ready for prime time, just with the broader user base. But as we all know, you can't go into a restaurant without pulling up the menu on a QR code. So that, kind of has changed a lot of things, and people are expecting those experiences that they have at home and in their personal lives back at the offices. So it's a nice, easy transition and very seamless.
Yeah, absolutely. Another COVID lesson. So next, we're going to talk about whiteboarding, which, and just preparing for today, I thought about just the evolution of whiteboards. I almost feel like every year, going to an industry trade show, there's another, PC based or whatever, Android based, whiteboard that has all these neat features, as long as you, know the app and you run the app and you understand the workflow. And that's complex, and it's outside of, a standard ecosystem. But here we are with Zoom, just offers whiteboarding, just natively, within the ecosystem, and it just continues to evolve. So maybe let's talk about digital whiteboarding and what's new, John.
Yeah, so it's been part of the Zoom experience, the in-meeting experience for years now. But it's been pretty basic, and it's not front and center in a Zoom meeting. You have to kind of know where to find the ability to annotate on a screen share or kickstart a whiteboard. On Zoom Rooms for Touch, or touch-enabled Zoom Rooms, the interface has been a lot more simplified, but it was disjointed between the Zoom meeting client and the Zoom Room. So what we've done here is really revamped the entire Zoom whiteboard experience to modernize it, to take it from being just an in-meeting tool to being a persistent tool where you can work on whiteboards across any device, mobile, desktop, the web client, Zoom rooms, both inside of meetings as well as outside of meetings. So you could start to build these whiteboards. The canvases themselves will become infinite, so you won't run out of space. These whiteboards might live for a whole project. The ability to put virtual sticky notes that can be color coordinated in there, tagging people in these sticky notes or these whiteboards, building flow charts and diagrams. So this is an area where I was looking at the feature log the other day for the next couple of releases, and it is remarkable, the feature velocity that we're going to be pushing out to revamp this whiteboard experience. So it's definitely going to get a whole lot better. And it's, as you mentioned, part of the core Zoom service. So this is not a separate product people have to go out and buy. There are some specialized tools out there that address power users. The way we're approaching it is simple enough to handle the most basic needs for whiteboarding for users, but also packing a lot into it for a lot of those power users to start really building out workflows. So I really like the approach.
I love the integration. I'm sure that it'll continue with even the chat and developments, which we're going to talk about in a few slides, what's going on in Zoom chat. But I also think that with whiteboarding, there's also the analog option, which is not always preferred, but Zoom handles both digital and analog whiteboards. And when I talk analog, just a camera that may use AI to sharpen the image and sharpen the lines of a circle or a square. But in both cases, what I like about how Zoom approaches whiteboarding is once it's enabled in the environment, it's very easy to share it directly into the meeting. I think that people who have done whiteboarding in the past, digital whiteboarding, how do you share it in the meeting? What do you do? It's just this kind of witchcraft. But with Zoom rooms, it will be recognized as a whiteboard and will just be there as one of your sharing options. And I think that's a big thing for people to maybe get past the hang up of, I don't know, am I going to be confident in sharing my whiteboard?
Yeah, the whiteboarding market is definitely disjointed, and it is clunky. And I think we could all do a lot better. And I'm impressed to see how Zoom's approaching this, because it does need to be simplified. It needs to be something that anyone can use without even requiring training, right? So that's really the approach that we're taking there.
Yeah. Okay. So let's do a little Zoom phone update. We here at Profound, certainly we use Zoom for our collab and phone. So we're running Zoom phone. We've been running it since it first started in beta. But I think one thing a lot of folks don't know is exactly how prolific Zoom is with its phone in the marketplace. I mean, I was surprised. You shared this stat with me: 2 million phones. So give us a little idea what's new with Zoom phones.
Yeah, absolutely. So this was, something that didn't exist about 2.5 years ago. I mean, obviously the team's working on building out a cloud phone solution even before that, but it's only been available for just over a couple of years. And to go from 0 to over 2 million phone seats in that short of time is just unprecedented in the industry. I think the next fastest to that same stat was over, I think it was close to 5 years. So it really accelerated fast. And the reason that it was possible was the way that Zoom was built as a single cloud-based architecture. It made it super easy to enable Zoom phone on the platform, right? It's a Zoom meeting without video, right? Essentially. And obviously there's a lot more to it in terms of integration needs and things like that. But it was, it's coming from a company that had multiple, phone and calling solutions and a disjointed meeting platform and this and that. It was kind of stapled together after the fact, but Zoom built that single cloud-based architecture, which makes this all possible. We probably have to do a full half hour or hour just to talk about the Zoom phone updates at Zoomtopia. But the big ones that we, wanted to call out here were things like video voicemail, is growing huge, and video greetings and whatnot. People are expecting that, especially on the Zoom platform, right? Where video has been central, the whole time. But also video engagement center. That's something that's really exciting, especially with tying that concept of essentially a kind of video contact center type solution with Zoom phone into things like the virtual kiosk. So now sitting down and putting those kiosks in certain areas where people could get connected and you could have a lot more back-end intelligent routing and things like that. but also making it more available for our partners. So with Provider Exchange, the ability to go in there and order PSTN services and things like that, either as part of the native Zoom Phone service, or if you already have your own infrastructure and things like that, that you have the ability to do a bring your own carrier type model as well. So there's different, the flexibility I think has helped, and it blows my mind to see how far Zoom Phone has come, even though it's not my day-to-day focus, but to see the enterprise logos that are using Zoom Phone, because I think the assumption is that maybe this is more for smaller businesses, but we have enterprise customers across all industries that are, that have not just a couple hundred or a couple thousand, but 50,000 Zoom Phone users spun up, 30,000. So it's been really crazy to see this enter into the enterprise space as a viable enterprise grade phone solution replacement, right?
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with the innovation that Zoom's doing. I mean, to think about a phone system, in terms of video routing of video calls is a new concept. I mean, that's a very new concept, but Zoom's leading the way, and that video engagement piece is what consumers have come to expect. And that might be a good transition to Video Engagement Center, new product announcement, and the idea of a kind of video optimized experience where you can call in, video enabled call in and be routed to the appropriate, contacts. Medical is one thing, obviously we're sharing here on the slide deck, the picture of getting in touch with your, healthcare provider. But there's so many other, ways that this can be used. What are some of your thoughts on Video Engagement Center and how it's relevant to different businesses?
Yeah, I think the healthcare use case there it hits home, because I think obviously people got a lot more used to doing doctor visits and specialist visits over video throughout the pandemic and whatnot, and that was always a kind of thrown together. It was I had doctors that say, what do you prefer, FaceTime or Zoom or Google Meet, and of course I had to remind them where I work and and why the best experience is on one. But it just kind of goes to show that there wasn't a great strategy. I think everyone in all sorts of industries were doing video meetings in more of a B2C environment here, where it's not just business to business, where it's expected that people have these room systems and meeting host licensing, but this is business to consumer applications as well. Start to think about different retail, walking into a bank, sitting down and either physically walking in or even doing this from home and getting connected. And I want to talk to someone about financial planning or retirement or, all sorts of different things, and the ability and to have that intelligence on the back end to route those and do it in a more personal video first experience. I think a lot of our customers across different industries are looking at this as a differentiator, right? Rather than to have the frustrating traditional contact center experience where you're just, I always jump to 0, 0, 0, just trying to get someone live on the phone, and I know that there's a lot of AI built into those, but this kind of area is ripe for disruption, and not to make things more complicated, make it simple, make it more personalized, and inject video into the experience. And I think customers are super excited. This is one of those announcements that was kept actually very quiet inside of Zoom. A lot of Zoomies were thrown off by this. So the team did a lot of great work on this, and it was a huge announcement for Zoom, and there's a ton of excitement for this to go live soon. So I'm super pumped about this one.
Yeah, absolutely. So many things. And I think for people trying to imagine how this works, there is the ability to, customize this with, Zoom's API into your apps, into your websites. And that's where the value really comes together. You can, control the customer experience through your interface, but have the ability to launch, Zoom's Video Engagement Center. It's kind of how we refer to it. But from the customer's experience, it's just a delightful way to get in touch with, whatever the use case is, the medical, the educational, and that's just something we haven't seen. So here's something I'm interested in, Zoom Chat. We use Zoom Chat here, but we look to use it more as it kind of takes on, features that appear to me to be similar to, Slack and some other collaboration tools. So, John, what are some of the feature enhancements that are kind of taking chat, to the next level as like a project collab type platform.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is an area kind of like whiteboarding where all the way up to Eric, our CEO, just is putting a ton of focus and innovation and investment into improving the experience a whole lot. A lot of our enterprise customers and other segments, have the ability to run different chat solutions, right? They have, Teams entitlement. They might be using Slack in certain areas and whatnot. So Zoom Chat has always been part of it. It's not a separate product. You kind of get it. But what we're really trying to evolve with our customers to deliver what is needed. As more customers use us for a full UCaaS platform, across phone and meetings and rooms and whiteboarding, coming soon. A lot of that is going to be central to the Zoom client experience. And so chat really ties all this together, right? As you have individual chats, you have group chats that are associated that are going to have meetings, and you're going to have whiteboards shared in there, and you're going to have files being shared in there. So there was a lot that we had to do, I think. And then just like in the interoperability discussion is what happens when we talk to someone outside the organization or in different departments where they use different tools. So I really like the Mio integration where they can basically take Zoom Chat and tie it together, integrate it with Teams users and whatnot, so people can chat across platforms, right? We do that with email. Why can't we do that with chat, right? And so I think this is the industry as a whole is really coming together with more of the ability to tie these different platforms together and communicate to people. So that's a big one, but certainly, bettering the experience for those that are living in Zoom all day. And, I like the UX updates on the new chat. I like all sorts of features from formatting to, customizing the, whether it's dark mode or light mode or how you want to do that. Huddle View is a great one. So you can start to really visualize, where your teams are that are part of these group chats and things like that. So, as I mentioned, the cloud storage. So you can share a file right in Zoom Chat. But a lot of our customers, especially in the enterprise segment where I focus, they want to standardize on where those documents live, right? And they want, they have compliance solutions in place to manage and monitor all of that. So the integrations with Box and SharePoint, OneDrive and whatnot, I think really unlock the possibility of Zoom Chat as the place where people start their day, as we see people transitioning, a lot of their communications from email over to group chat and persistent chat like this. They can get more of their work done, right from this interface. And chat, I think, is the glue that holds a lot of this, ties it together.
Yeah, I agree. And what I like about it is it's just yet another thing that's, included. I know that there's ways that people can increase their licensing relationship, in the chat arena, but it's a lot of value out of the gate. And as it continues to develop, it'll just be a very powerful collaboration tool. Yep. So as we wrap up, one last one that's kind of neat. I'm just thinking to myself, Zoom events, the Zoomtopia itself, of course, is a Zoom event. And I just in the last 3 months, I think I've attended at least 3 or 4, either directly or through our staff here, virtual trade shows. And so there's a lot that is happening in that way, and the need for innovation to have ways that people can, address the virtual world in a way that's kind of similar,
Yep.
choosing where they're going to go, being in a lobby, going to special access events, are all things that now we're kind of translating from the, real life to the virtual world. So Zoom events, John, how can you kind of help us understand, what's happening here and what's relevant about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously we have our meetings platform, which can host up to 1,000 participants in a meeting, and we have our webinars as well. That's been part of the Zoom platform for a long time, and you can really scale up to very large events on the webinar platform. That's very much focused around registering for a point in time. Usually it's a an hour or 2 hour webinar, and people join in and they. But what you're talking about with these multi-day virtual trade shows is the ability to attend a keynote, and then you've got a little bit of time off, so you want to wander around the expo floor and check out some booths, and then hop into some breakout sessions. And so, behind the scenes, some of those might be webinars and some might be meetings, and depending on what the breakouts and what the needs are for all of these sessions. But to tie it all together with a single events wrapper, where we can handle the ticketing of that event, and we can handle the ability to kind of host that user throughout all of these experiences, so they can go from the keynote to a virtual expo floor. I was clicking around that on Zoomtopia because that was one of the beta features we enabled for it. And you could just walk up to booths and pop in there and meet with some experts and product specialists and see some demos, and then get back to your sessions when they start, and hop into a session and jump right to the next session. There's chat in between. So it really takes, a lot of the things that we're doing in the platform, but really builds it all into a true immersive event experience that's all, under that one umbrella. And the big thing there, as you mentioned, is we ran Zoomtopia on this, right? We talked about 48,000, registrants, and, the ability to, we try to eat our own dog food for stuff like this. And we certainly put ourselves out there to do this all on our own platform, but it was flawless, and even running some of the beta features like the expo and stuff like that. But the thought there is, these are not just one event, this is multi-day, oftentimes multi-track events. There's simultaneous things going on in different areas. So we're really trying to reproduce the experience that you get when you go to Enterprise Connect or InfoComm, with all of the things that are happening there, including sponsor, events and exclusive things. So, we do expect to, I hope we're back, shaking hands and, seeing our industry colleagues, in person, next year or whenever that really does happen more widespread. And this events platform will help not just for 100% virtual, but the shift toward hybrid. We know that, people are gonna, want to join those types of events from their own home, right? Some will want to travel for it and things like that. So I think this is going to support the events of the future. And I really like the way that Zoom built this with all of these considerations in mind.
Yeah, I agree. It's a tremendous opportunity, for traditional, events to go digitally. And, I'm thinking of, the original list of Zoomtopia topics. Obviously, we couldn't, we're concluding at this point, we couldn't fit everything in there, but one of the other things was Zoom and Oculus, and for those who aren't familiar with Oculus and virtual reality, that's coming too, where you're able to basically bring yourself into, I'll use that popular term, metaverse, where you're viewing yourself as an avatar with other people in the same way, and even having digital keyboards. It seems very foreign, maybe to some even ridiculous, but that's where development is going as well. And I think Zoom's leading the way in that environment. So in the future, you can not only go to a Zoom event that's virtual, but it also might be in a virtual reality. And that's just something to kind of wrap your head around. But anyway,
that's one quick comment on that. It's personally, I've always looked at that like I can't see popping a VR headset on to join a meeting, because video is so good these days anyways. But when you start talking about immersing yourself in an event where we want to get together with teams and start to whiteboard and do sticky notes and do this, you really have the ability to do more than just see and hear each other or screen share. And that's a good way to really wrap yourself into that experience. It's super excited about that.
Yeah, I feel like that will become the new immersive, experience. I think traditionally immersive might have meant something about the quality of the video, the distance of the participants to the content, but that's not going to be enough in the future. Immersive is actually going to be putting the goggles on, dropping yourself into an environment where there's so much that can be experienced for the meeting participants. That's very exciting. So I think with that, we'll conclude. John, I wanted to thank you and Zoom for helping us do this Zoomtopia 2021 review. And just want to thank everybody for joining us. Certainly, if you have any questions, reach out to myself or John. Again, Profound Technologies, Zoom Gold Certified Integrator. We'd be happy to be your technology partner. Thanks again, John, for taking the time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for being a great partner to Zoom. I know we've known each other for 12 years or so now, so it's crazy to see how far we've come. But happy to be here, and certainly appreciate you all taking the time to tune in. So have a great day, everyone.